So a lot of people call us and they'll say to us, well, I was going through the airport, I went through the metal screening machine, I didn't alarm the machine, and yet I was told to go through the secondary, through the enhanced screening. They were either directed to the AIT machine or they were given the enhanced pat-down. Now, I would just like to point out that the word enhanced, this is not the first time this has been used by the government for something that's just outright abusive. So this morning I went through our database. We have a database where every time a person calls CARE with any type of a complaint, we put it into an electronic database, and this covers all of our chapters throughout the country. So I did a little search on the word airport, and I came up with, understandably, a very long list. So I'm just going to read you a few examples of the things that I came up with today. This by no means is an exhaustive list. This is just very few samples of the complaints that we've received by our constituents. For example, last month, 2011, a client from Lewiston, Maine said he was going through the X-ray scanner machine at the airport while most passengers went through the normal line. He told the TSA officer that the X-ray is optional and that he wanted to go through the same procedures as everyone else. The TSA officer refused to let him bypass the X-ray machine and threatened to, quote, put him down, which I'm taking to mean as some type of threat to, physically restrain him if the client did not go through the X-ray machine. The client finally felt like he had to go through the machine. So this was just last month. In April of this year, a client from Old Town, Florida contacted us. They were told by TSA agents that she was being subject to secondary screening, so she got the enhanced pat-down, and they told her it was specifically because of her scarf. After she got the enhanced pat-down, she was greatly disturbed. She felt like she had been physically violated. She was distraught. So the airplane was getting ready to take off. She told them to stop. They stopped the airplane. She got off the airplane. She was eventually reimbursed by Delta Airlines. She was just, very emotionally damaged by this. She went to her Islamic center in Gainesville, Florida, and she was told to contact CARE, and thus she called us and made a report with us. Last year in November 2010, a client states that TSA agents prevented her from going through the metal detector at airports and pointed to the full body scanner and asked the client, "Do you want to go in there?" The client responded, "No." The client proceeded through the metal detector, did not set the machine off. A TSA agent, she gives the agent's name, actually I won't read the name, told her to stop and put her in the glass box and told her there to wait for a female assist for secondary screening. Also November 2010 from Euless, Texas. A client was traveling through Bush International Airport in Houston, Texas with his wife, who wears a headscarf, and their 6-year-old daughter. The client states that they were patted down even though the metal detector did not alarm. So all of them were given the enhanced pat down because the wife was wearing a headscarf. And finally, we have a report from September 2010, Daly City, California. The client states that she is searched while going through airport security while wearing her headscarf. When she is not wearing her headscarf, she does not get stopped. She feels that she is being, quote, profiled when she goes to the airport when she's wearing her headscarf. So we understand that the TSA does have this policy where if you are wearing headgear, you will be stopped. And we understand that it does not necessarily target Muslims or target people that are wearing the headscarf, but it does happen to disparately impact Muslims and other people wearing religious clothing, and it automatically prevents them from wanting to practice their religion. As the congressperson noted earlier, the people of the Sikh faith wear the turban. Some Orthodox Jewish men and women cover their hair, and are being targeted by TSA procedures. Muslims, again, are. This is one problem that we have with the new TSA screening. Another problem that we have are the AIT machines. We believe that the AIT violates an element of Islam and also an element of a lot of religions, and that is the privacy, the modesty element. In Islam, a lot of Muslims, not all Muslim women, cover themselves from head to toe, including their hair, such as the way that I'm dressed right now. It's not, every single Muslim woman doesn't cover her hair, but a lot of Muslims believe that even if their hair is not covered, they still do not want to be seen naked by anyone. So we definitely have a problem with that. Now, CARE is participating with the lawsuit, EPIC versus the TSA, which I believe Ginger is going to talk about a little bit more later. But we believe that this procedure, the AIT as it's being proposed to be used as primary screening, it violates a Muslim's right to be modest and to observe this element of their faith. So essentially, the government says that there is another option, that there is no substantial burden because a person can choose the pat-down option, the enhanced screening. Well, as we all know, this is not much of an option. There has been a lot of public pushback against this, and not just from people of religious communities, but from people in general. We've heard nighttime comedians making jokes about, the enhanced screening and the pat-downs. We have people feeling violated and feeling like this is just way too aggressive and way over the top. And so we would submit to the TSA that they try to work on these procedures. This seems to be just a dragnet. There's a lot of focus in the wrong areas. Yes, we understand that Muslims did commit the tragedies of 9/11, but these Muslims were dressed in pants, button-down shirts, they were clean-shaven, they were not dressed in the quote-unquote Muslim garb that Juan Williams is very nervous about. These are people that just blended right in. So when the TSA focuses on headscarves and turbans and other types of religious headgear, they're really placing their emphasis and their time and their resources in all the wrong places. So for TSA, we just ask that these policies be reviewed, and they do try to find the least restrictive means necessary to make sure that our airports are safe. And finally, for you all in the audience, obviously by you being here, you're somehow interested in this issue. I urge you to support all of the organizations and the coalitions and the nonprofit institutions that are fighting these policies. We ask you not to sit by idly while our freedoms are being slowly chipped away. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to introduce Chris Calabrese, one of my colleagues at the ACLU. He's the Legislative Counsel for privacy-related issues in the American Civil Liberty Union's Washington Legislative Office. He's currently working to battle data collection practices by the government and private sector that could lead to the creation of a surveillance society, fight invasive airline passenger screening practices, and protect workers against the damaging impact of a national electronic employment verification system.
It's a miracle I have time to do anything else. All that for. Hello. I don't actually think that my words on this, as interesting as I'm sure you would all find them, would be as persuasive as the words of the people who have been harmed by this practice. So we've gotten more than 1,000 complaints about the pat-downs and about the naked body scanners in less than a year. So I'm just going to share a couple with you. I have a history of being raped. I was subjected to what I have since learned is a new TSA enhanced pat-down. I cried throughout the groping and have intrusive thoughts since. It was humiliating. I felt powerless. It brought up emotions I could not explain. I am concerned about the exposure, and I am equally concerned that someone saw my precious daughter as if she was naked. I was then put through as well and was humiliated and felt as though I were in a peep show. Before this trip, I honestly felt the scanners were a good idea and a price to be paid for traveling. After living it firsthand, I have to say it is flat out wrong. That is Celeste from Florida. One more. The entire affair was very punitive and humiliating, and time-consuming and emotionally distressing. When I retrieved my things, I walked into the women's room and wept. Rosemary from Virginia. As Ms. Walton has pointed out, there'll be more than 2 million people who travel by air this week. I'm reading these stories because, obviously, I believe they matter, but I think fundamentally there is sometimes a perception that this aviation security is just an inconvenience, or that it's something that, we have to endure in a new reality. The fact is that these procedures cause Americans harm every day. They cause Muslim Americans harm, they cause Sikh Americans harm, they cause everyone harm. That has to be balanced against any benefit. We need to understand, and I should have said at the outset, I appreciate Ms. Walton coming here. This is not an easy audience. It's not easy to be on a panel like this. I appreciate her candor in noting that TSA is not in the 100% security business, and I apologize if I misquoted you, but they're in the business of mitigating risk. And that's correct. There is no 100% security. There's simply risk mitigation. So when we cause additional harm, that has to be weighed against the risk that we are mitigating. Now, it's my contention that body scanners especially, and the pat-downs that follow them, had much more to do with the politics of the moment than they did with mitigating risk and a intelligent weighing of security practices. It's fortunate that you don't have to rely on my word for that. The Government Accountability Office says it better than I could. So I'll read from their report that came out in the months following the attempted Christmas bombing. According to TSA's threat assessment, terrorists have various techniques for concealing explosives in their person. However, TSA has not assessed whether these and other tactics that terrorists could use to evade detection by screening technologies, such as AIT, increase the likelihood that the screening equipment would not detect the hidden weapons or explosives. Thus, without an assessment of the vulnerabilities of checkpoint technologies, it's unclear whether the AIT or other technologies would have been able to detect the weapon I always mess up his name, Abdul Muttalib, used in this attempted attack. So we rolled out naked body scanners. We weren't sure if they were going to work, but we had a lot of money to pay for them because we had stimulus dollars. And, at the same time, the president is saying, in press conferences after the event, that this was an intelligence failure, that they made mistakes in not connecting the dots, though I hate that phrase.